Hey everyone, it's patch 3.20 of Crucible, and I wanted to make a video going over my League Start plans for this season. So quite a lot of my friends asked me if I wanted to play with them this season. I said sure, so for this season I will be doing a party play start. This is going to happen for the first week of the season, and then after that we will all be splitting all the money that we make and go our separate ways, at which point I'll just be doing normal solo builds. The goal of all of this is to have fun. I want to play with my friends since I haven't really done anything like this in about 2 years or so. I have quite a lot of experience playing Orobots with people in the past, and I kind of miss it, so it's going to be fun to do it again this season. I get to play carry this time around, which I'm excited about as there's no better feeling in the game playing Spark with 15 casts per second. Spark and an Orobot is just something else. As I mentioned, our goal is to have fun. So because of that, we're not going to be tryharding, but at the same time, all of us are pretty big tryhards. So what might look a little bit more casual to us might be quite tryhardy for some people. Our goal is going to be to make 4 mirrors in the first week. Every person here can get a mirror or a Mage Blood on their own solo very easily. These are all very competent players. So we want to at least get 4 mirrors. So it is worth our time. That way we all basically get what we would have gotten if we played solo. That's the bare minimum. I know we will definitely go past that. And ideally, it'd be nice if we can make 8 mirrors. At that point, we all get 2 mirrors each, which will be quite a hefty split. It'll definitely be a little bit more than we can all see on our own, unless we get a really good season and we get lucky. It'll be nice to have a little bit bigger of a split. So let's talk about what all this is going to look like. I am going to go over the general plan for how we will handle day 1 into day 2 and day 3. And then we will look at all of the path of buildings for everything that we're playing. So I wrote everything down in path of building. I just like this more as a notepad. But our plan is going to be rushing elder farming. Because of that, our curse bot isn't very useful because we don't really need it for bosses. So our curse bot is going to be a second trader. So for days 1 through 3, we'll have 2 traders, a carry, and a Orobot. So all of our planning is going to be focused on getting me and our Orobot Brian through the campaign as fast as possible. We do have quite a few things that we need in Act 1, and between 4 people, this should be pretty easy to get. I am going to need Sniper's Mark, which has been moved to Act 1 this season. That is going to be massive for Spark, and it's going to basically make up for all the nerfs. I am going to need Pierce. This is basically required to play Spark. Without this, it feels bad. Both me and Brian will need movement speed boots, and between 4 people and 4 different vendors, hopefully we can find boots, but this is not a big deal if we don't, but it'd be nice to have 4 people look out for them. I'm going to need a bigger mana flask. This is either of the upgraded mana flasks from Act 1. This is mostly here just in case we get unlucky and we somehow don't get a single mana flask or drop. Our Orobot is going to be running about a level 2 to level 3 clarity. We have found that is a sweet spot for fixing all of my mana problems and not needing to press a mana flask at all, especially once we get later into Act 3 and Act 4, where I could pick up Shaper for 40% mana regen and eventually Arcane Will for a flat 5. Level 2 to level 3 clarity should take care of all of it. I'm going to need a blue-blue-green item. This is ideal for both Spark and for Stormbrand. This is going to be my main 3-link until I can get a 4-link. Then I'm going to need Added Cold if we're going Stormbrand, and Arcane Surge because Templar does not get Arcane Surge. This is due to Onslaught being gone and Arcane Surge being the best new support until added lightning damage right before Brutus. For our Orobots, we're going to need Smite, which I will be picking up and leveling until I give it to them in Act 3. A hell of a lot of blue sockets. Orobot is super blue socket intensive, and we found from our few practice runs that we are consistently struggling on getting blue sockets. So we'll just be on the lookout for those. Triple blue anything. This is for them to run their Stormblast Mine setup. And then, of course, movement speed boots as well. And then, because of the nerfs to wands, we will both be needing spiral wands. So hopefully we will have 4 people looking for decent rare spiral wands at drop. We'll also be potentially looking to take a loan. At the start of the season, I will be putting out a hunt for +1 wands and +2 staves. And if anybody gets it in my chat, we will buy it from them and we'll give them an IOU. We'll pay them like 20 chaos a few hours later or something for +1 or +2 items to make leveling faster. This is a massive deal, And if you have a +1 or +2 item for either Stormbrand or Spark, you will level like 30% faster. So it'd be nice if you can find one of those. Let's talk about what I mentioned earlier, Spark and Stormbrand. So Spark is going to be nerfed by 25% projectile speed. I have quite a lot of experience on Spark. So our plan is going to be to play Spark from level 1 to level 12. We can't use Stormbrand anyway until level 12. And if Spark feels mushy, if it doesn't feel good, if the clear feels awful with 25% less projectile speed, then we will be swapping over to Stormbrand. The difference between the two is very minimal. Spark has traditionally been the go-to for carry and Orabot, simply because typically most of the content that you do is tiny areas, and that is the only reason Spark is better. In an open area like a map, Stormbrand is actually basically the same thing as Spark, and in some cases actually might have a little bit better clear with enough activation range. But since our plan is going to be bosses and Spark is ever so slightly better, and I personally like Spark a little bit more, we'll start with Spark. And if it's bad, we will go Brands instead and just play Brands all the way through. I'm looking forward to either way. I haven't played Brands since Delirium. It'll be a fun experience. With all this mentioned, we do not want to waste time getting half of these items. So our 2 traders are going to be looking for those for us. Our traders don't really need to progress. They just need to get to Act 4 to be able to trade divination cards, but we'll have them progress with us along the way since there is no reason not to until we get at least something worthwhile to sell or to trade or to flip. There's no reason for them to not progress to make a little bit of currency themselves. It is okay if they kind of end their league starts because, again, they don't need to rush the maps. So they're mostly going to be playing a support role for us and getting us everything we need while leveling and handling all of the logistics. We're trying to make it so me and Brian can literally just hold W and AFK through all of day 1. We do not want to stop to trade. We do not want to have to stop to buy an item. We do not want to worry about anything, even to the minute details, such as I need a new pair of gloves, but the gloves that we buy aren't the correct colors. Our traders are going to color them for us. And then when they put in the guild stash, it'll be ready for me to quite literally put it on my character, put in all my gems, and ready to go. They're mostly going to be our supports. One of them is going to make a ranger. One of them is going to make a witch. The witch is simply there to get arcane surge. And then the ranger is there to go to Mudflats and Tidal Island to get Sniper's Mark and Pierce. Hopefully we find movement speed boots at the start, but if we don't, as all of us are going to level, we're all going to keep looking for movement speed boots to make it a little bit easier. Between 4 people and between just raw drops and between the vendor, should be pretty easy for us to get at least 10% movement speed boots. We are going to make the handoff of them giving all this to us when we go get Orb of Storms. And after that, we should have everything we need to just push through Act 1. The only change will be getting Stormbrand in at the end if we need it. Act 2, there's no changes as well. This is simply just pushing forward while looking for correct 3 links for us later on. And then Act 3, for me, is going to be pretty painless. I just need to find a 4 link. And even if I don't, nothing changes. I will be buying Conductivity for Brian since he will be taking Wrath from Maramora. And then we will need to be looking for 4 links. Finding the Orabot's 4 link is more important than finding my 4 link because their 4 link is going to either be red, red, blue, green or triple red, blue. This is for Smite, Generosity in the 2 red gems, Wrath in the blue gem, and then if we find another green, faster attacks, or if we find a triple red, Anger for later on once they can actually fit to 50% auras and Smite and Stormblast Mine. Our Orabot is going to be running Stormblast Mine until maybe around Act 5 or so, at which point they just simply swap over to pressing Smite and looking cute. That is because Stormblast Mine gives enemies a more damage taken multiplier as long as they're not detonated. So he will need to have enough reservation to be able to throw down 15 Stormblast Mines on top of a boss without detonating them to give me a 45% more damage boost. But once he's ready to swap over, we will want triple red so he can also run Anger instead of faster attacks. Once we have all this, we'll just pump through the rest of the leveling experience. There's not much to say here. Once we get to maps, our plan is going to be to rush tier 16. We are going to absolutely just shove every single little bit of currency we get into our guild stash for our traders to do their magic with. Our traders are going to be taking the currency and flipping. If you have a trader, I'm not going to really say what we're going to do here because this, is a pretty volatile market. We don't really want more competition. But if you have a trader, they probably already know what they're doing here. I don't really have to mention this part. This is basically just here for a trader, but again, your trader should know all this already. But we're shoving all of our currency into them. They're going to be making money with it, and hopefully it won't take us more than a few hours to get to tier 16 farming. Once we're in tier 16 farming, our plan is going to be to farm essences. This is going to be what our tree looks like. We have 2 trees here, one for just essences and one for blight. We're not sure if we want to do blight since it will be kind of slow, but at the same time, we'll be getting golden and silver oils early, which will be very good money. But our set in stone plans is going to be at least doing essences. Our TLDR progression is going to be rushing the shapings, going through the Karak nodes, rushing the other shapings, then picking up all the essence nodes. This will allow us to at least make some resemblance of money while we're progressing. We're going to go amplified, then crystal, then the other crystal, and prolific essence, at which point we will block all content. This should be enough passive points to get us into low reds. Once we can start getting to altars, that's when we'll go over and pick up all the searing exarch altars. Searing is better than Eater because this is just raw currency. We see Chaos Orbs quite often, and that is going to give us overall more money per map than Eater will. It also lines up nicely if you want to do Blight. Since we have Blight nodes here, Blight nodes here, Blight nodes here, and here, we want to be on the left side of the Atlas. If this isn't enough points to get us into low reds to where we want to actually start picking up the searing nodes, we will start working on all of the shrine nodes. Shrines are amazing, especially for Spark. We really, really want to get these for acceleration, which will make our mapping faster. But if we're already on tier 14 maps, we'll get these first. Lastly, we will get Remnants of the Past. This is very crucial to our plans, and we'll fill out the rest of this as we get our last few points with the shrine nodes if we haven't already picked them. We're not planning to do a full Atlas completion. We just simply want to make it to tier 16 maps. We want to have everything we need to sustain, and then we're going to sit there and farm tier 16 maps. As I said, we are farming essences and tier 16 maps to sell. These are amazing day 1 and day 2. They sell for, especially day 1, for over 10C each. The hope is that we will more than over sustain them and we can make quite a nice profit on them. And the whole goal of everything we're doing in tier 16 is to farm boss maps. As I mentioned, Remnants of the Past is crucial to our plan for day 2 and day 3, as the first thing we will be doing is farming Elder. Elder is insane money, and all the items from Elder are very much wanted early on, especially Watcher's Eyes, while Elder being a very easy boss to farm simply because it's a small area and Spark will do great in there. So what we're trying to do is we are basically wasting time until enough Elder maps are in the market for us to consistently be farming Elder. We're also going to try to get some of our own, and even once there's enough fragments on the map, we're still most likely going to have to buy more Elder maps and run them ourselves for fragments. So we want to start stockpiling on them as soon as we can and start running them ASAP. We are swapping to Elder as soon as our Aura bot is strong enough to basically make it so we can AFK Elder, and I am low life with a Annihilating Light. This should be pretty easy to do by the end of day 1, so we might be able to do a few Elder kills super early on. We will see. If not, we'll just go to bed and start farming Elder day 2. For Elder, our plan here is going to be that we do any fragments our traders can buy. This is mostly based on our traders, where they're going to be sitting there and sniping every Elder fragment they can and every single Elder map they can. Obviously, it's not going to be enough fragments, especially until maybe day 3. So we will have to buy maps and run them ourselves. And if we ever run out of fragments, if there's no more Elder maps on the market that are worth buying, we'll just go back to farming essences and tier 16 maps until we are ready to go back to Elder. Hopefully by the end of day 2, this isn't really a problem anymore and we can consistently sit there and just farm Elder with no downtime. And if for some reason our traders are done or they don't have anything to buy, they're going to be sitting there sextant rolling and flipping. I think our plan is going to be one trader is always buying fragments and maps, and then the other trader is always sextant rolling and flipping, and they will just swap between the two so it's not monotonous and boring for them. Our traders are going to mostly be coordinating the whole time. All of us are going to be in a Discord call, so this should be a pretty easy swap and call for them to make on the fly. Ideally, once we made enough money and upgrade our build even further, and Maven fragments start being put on the market, we're eventually going to swap over to Maven. Maven is even better. RF is a super popular build, and the boots day 1 and day 2 go for over 100 chaos each, and then they drop to about 50, and then eventually by day 4, day 5, they will drop down to 10C. So we want to go and farm the hell out of the RF boots, especially with how popular RF is every season. Thank you, Fox. Not only that, but Awaken Jewels. This is the main source of Awaken Jewels, especially early on. Not many people are farming Cyrus, so it's mostly just from Maven, and those will sell at a massive premium, especially if you get lucky and get a massive Awaken Jewel, such as Spell Cascade or GMP or Chain or Fork or any of the popular ones. If we luck out and get something good here, we can immediately become super rich and just go to Uber Maven. But the goal is going to be eventually swapping over to Uber Maven for even better drop rates. Now, Uber Maven's a little bit weaker because the Infinite Sextant strategy has been nerfed into the ground. That doesn't really work anymore. So the demand for elevated sextants is going to be as high, but it's still going to be there because people are going to want their elevated sextants for other farming strategies, such as essences. Elevated essence sextant is very good, and other party players who are doing mapping already and aren't doing bosses. They're going to want to get all of their elevated sextants for super efficient mapping. So we will be farming those from Melvin. So we will be farming those from Uber Maven and using them ourselves most likely instead of just selling them. Since we are sextant rolling in the first place, it is more profit to use them rather than to sell them. That is the TLDR on our plan. We're basically going to do this for as long as until we get bored. Realistically, we think we're going to do this until day 3 to day 4. Whenever we get bored of making a lot of money, we are going to have our curse bots be leveled. We're going to get them gear, and then we're going to just go do mapping for fun. Mapping isn't as efficient as bossing, and it only keeps up with it, I would say, at the end of the week, which is when we plan to go to it. But even if we do go earlier, if we get completely bored of farming Maven by day 2, day 3, we just want to go map for fun, which we know won't be as efficient, but at the same time, 100% delirious maps with friends is a very, very fun time. And then after that, we'll just do that until either we're bored or it's the end of week 1, and then we will go our separate ways. Let's talk about the path of buildings for this. So I will have these linked below. I have a path of building for Spark. This was a unreleased guide from last season. I can guarantee you this will work because this was my league starter. I was going to make a league start video on all of this, but I ended up not. And this was the path of building I was going to put in the guide. This is for single player, so you might have to adjust this a little bit for a multiplayer. Good example of that is you're probably not going to be running Wrath and you're not going to be running Grace. You're most likely going to want to run Purity of Elements and Anger until your Orbach can run Anger. But for the most part, everything else is accurate. I went through and fixed up all the trees for 321. This isn't meant to be a guide for how to play this. It's just if you want some things to look at, if you want a path of building to follow, if your carry needs something to look at, this is here for you to look at. But the TLDR is just level Spark, just as every other Spark build is leveled. And then eventually, once you get to maps, you will be swapping over to low life. And this, I updated a little bit to include the Aura bots basic auras with no effect. So as it currently stands, it'll be about 44 million DPS once fully swapped over. Again, this was part of my Spark guide that I was going to release. So this has all of the information that you need on how to swap over to Annihilating Lights, when to swap over it, what you need, and so on and so forth. This isn't going to be as relevant because it mostly talks about getting enough resistances for a solo player. But by this point, your Aura bot is most likely going to have all their purities and you're going to be at 85 max res. So you don't really need to worry about getting enough resistances on all of your gear before you swap. I also have a path of building for Sternbrand. This is made by a streamer named Zboob. He loves Sternbrand. This was what I was recommended. He's typically the #1 Sternbrand path of building. And this is a path of building for a full-on level 1 to super endgame Giga Mage Blood setup for Stormbrand. So it is written from a single player perspective as well. You might have to change this a little bit, but if you've never played Stormbrand and your carry wants to go Stormbrand, this is just, again, another guide to look at. All these trees are for 319, so you might have to change these up a little bit. It's mostly just the masteries they'd have to change. The rest of the information is pretty much still spot on. And there's notes on how to level, when to swap stuff, and when to change your gear. Lastly, for our Aura bots, they are going to be following Holoplasm's guide. Currently, as of recording this, Holoplasm has not updated for 321, but he is working on it and should be out before the season starts. I will link his channel in the description. He also has a full guide on how to play Spark and Aurabots together. So if you want an actual handheld guide on how to do this, then that will be your source for it. There's also Snap. Snap is Empyrean's Aurabot, and he's the person who sets up their party play every single season. I'll link him below as well if you want more resources. I've personally always listened to Spark, but I know Holoplasm is also very good at it. I personally just am a Snap simp. That's all I really have to say for all of this. I am excited. This is fun. This is something that I haven't been able to do in a few years. I'm glad I'm able to play with friends. It's always fun when you can play PoE together with other people. Makes it nice to not see the game as just a pure single player game the whole time. If you have any questions on any of this, I can try to answer them as best as I can. I'm not too familiar with party play, but I am decently familiar with Aurabots. So I can try to answer most of your questions there. I have put together pretty expensive Aurabots, but they were in the past, but I still have some general Aurabot knowledge, and I could try to answer some of your questions there. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful league start. I hope you enjoy the start of your season, and I hope to see you guys around. And if you're doing party play as well, I hope you guys make a lot of money and have fun. And I will see you guys in the next video.